This new Waterpark pack from Sully should have been a DLC. It is that good. And in today's episode I am very excited to use all of these Waterpark assets to create a really awesome Waterpark. I also hope that it introduces a few of you guys to how the assets work, because they're going to be available to you really soon. So whereabouts do we start? What do we start with? Do we start with a theme? Well, there's just too much to go through as far as I'm concerned, so I'm just going to go with the basics. We're going to start with an area here and then probably work out from a car park. The area you choose might be mountainous, it might be coastal like mine, or it might be something different. I guess it doesn't really matter too much unless you're going with a really specific theme. So let's dive right in and build this car park. It's going to be very simple. This isn't going to be where the focus is, but let's get it done. For the sake of realism, we're going to have this functioning also, so the citizens are going to need somewhere to come and park. And as much as I'd like to dive right into the cool stuff like the slides and the pools and all that stuff, this is kind of the way that I work. I've got to sort of get to that realistically, and the car park and the entrance might have to come first, so let's quickly do that. So there we have a very simple car park, and now I want to move on to the next thing, and I kind of want to make one thing in the middle of the park that everything sort of centers around, if that makes any sense. Or maybe at the least it's at least a prominent feature. And I've decided that should probably be some sort of a nature theme or a nature scene. So we're going to build a nice little hill with some bush on it and maybe a little waterfall or two. So now let's move on to the entryway where the citizens are going to move through, pay for their ticket and move into the park. You guys could go to town with all sorts of themes and cool different entryways, but I'm going to keep this pretty simple. There's quite a few Waterpark entry assets already on the workshop that are pretty easy to go and scoop up and use, which is what I've done here. But you could also use the vanilla or the DLC park entrances here and charge an additional fee for people to get in, which would be a crafty way to make money within game. I really can't wait to see what you guys can do with these assets. So here I've decided to extend that nature area. I want to make another big pool with another area that sort of looks like it's been overtaken by nature. Eventually we will have lots of slides and man-made pools all over the place, but this is going to be our starting point. So speaking of pools, let's dive into the first of Sully's assets, and it's this network here, and it can either be a plain network or it can be a stair network. We can change it from 8 meters to 16 meters, and basically we can make a pool of any size and shape we want. There's even an asset that comes as a pool floor or the bottom of the pool, and there's even one that includes a water producer. So it's really got everything we need. And on top of that, it's even got pre-made pools of varying sizes, so really easy to use and pretty much ready to go. So what I want to do here is lay out all of the assets that Sully has created for us. If they're networks, I'll just create a small segment and really just get a look at what we're working with. And would you just get a look at what we've got included in this pack? It really is quite incredible. We've got water slide towers of varying sizes, heaps of different water slide networks including open tubes and full tubes, as well as the lazy river ride and all sorts of varying little props in between. This is quite incredible. And I guess the reason why I believe this could be a DLC is because there's just so many options that come with this. You could spend hours making different water parks. Just as we spent hours making different harbours when Sunset Harbour came out, or different airports when the airport DLC came out, so it's definitely in that same sort of category. When it comes to setting up your water slide, there's a couple of things you're going to need to know. Sully has included different networks, including all of the tubes and slides that we need, including invisible networks. Some of these networks make the vehicle visible and some of them make the vehicle invisible. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is create an invisible track for most of the way back up to the slide return at the beginning of the slide. However, there should be a small section at the very end of the slide where the rider goes into the pool, where you should have the vehicle visible. It takes a little bit of work, but I'm sure you'll suss it. And it was this point that I decided to pretty much start again, but with a bit of a theme. I think theming the slides is a really cool thing. I've chosen to go with like a real old ruined temple look here, but whether it be like a cyberpunk theme or a tropical theme, or maybe you've built a water slide in outer space, whatever it may be, if you're the creative type, then this is really fun. So here I'm going to build 2 slides starting at the top of a pyramid, an old ruined pyramid, and they're going to twirl their way down to a nearby pool. And I've also made one next to them that goes through some really old ruins, and eventually it's going to come out through like a snake mouth and enter the pool at the end. So I called that slide the Serpent. I mean, that sounded pretty fair. You just caught a small glimpse there of a waterfall. That's one from the original park that I built. That was really the only part that I was happy with, so I kind of built around that here. The next slide that I'm making here is going to come down some old ruins, and this is a good example of what you can do with a little bit of creativity. I'm going to call this one the Temple Run. That sounds pretty appropriate, I think. I've also decided to run with multiple themes here in the end, and I found this cool Disney castle, so I'm going to run 4 different slides off this as well. I've tried to use no controller to widen a couple of the turns as well and just make it look a little bit more interesting on the way down. All up, I've made 8 different slides, but you could make 20, 30, 40 depending on how much you love water parks. So let's move on now to the next thing Sully has included in the pack, and this is also really cool. This is the Lazy River Ride. This is another network based asset. This time it's a ferry path, and he's made it really easy to set up. The theme I'm going with for this is fire and ice. We're going to have one side of it a volcanic eruption. There's going to be like fireballs and burning stuff everywhere, and obviously a volcano. And on the other side of it, I want to have it sort of look like the Antarctic. We're going to have fake ice. There's going to be areas where kids and stuff can go and play on a playground, and if you're brave enough you can go and play in fake snow. Maybe it's not cold, I'm not sure, but I thought this was a pretty cool theme. So to set this up in your water park, it's really easy. There's sections of it that are just a straight river ride. There's other sections that are stairs, and these sections make it look like it's accessible for the citizens to just sort of walk in. There's a small section that's a depot that's invisible, which is brilliant. And finally the station, and this is where you want to put it so people get on basically. Again, this is really super easy to set up. I really can't believe that this close to CS2 there's still brand new life being blown into CS1. I mean, thank you Sully, this is awesome. Please make sure you guys give him some love in the comments. But in terms of what you're looking at here, all of these props are found on the Steam Workshop. This big volcano here with all these props and these rock props and surfaces I'm using, you can go and find them pretty easy. And I'm going to touch on again why I think this should be a DLC is because it's really the themes that bring it to life. What Sully has done is absolutely brilliant, don't get me wrong. But giving them a theme, or at least a little bit of sort of context, is what really makes them just so cool. I've also used the pedestrian paths included in the Plaza DLC to make all of this area functional within game. You guys could add a really cool water park to your city that is completely functional. I've just set a little wee service point outside of the main gates, and all of the buildings and services that are inside the park area are handled. At the moment, our 3 Disney slides are just sliding into a random pool, but now I'd like to spend some time, make it a better shape so it fits a bit better, and I'd like to make one end of it look like a naturally occurring beach. So maybe you could just grab your towel and go and lie on the sand. So what I'll do is I'll slope the terrain very gently into the pool area on the side of the pool that I want the beach. Then I'm going to use these fake pool bottoms that Sully has included in the pack to sort of just run into that sand. Speaking of sand, don't forget to use the sand function within game to paint the beach. I'm going to have one side of the beach following a bit of a tropical theme as well. We're going to have some big sort of fake cliffs and lots of bushy, palmy sort of a scrub look to the hillside. I also want to flatten an area near the beach and run one of our pedestrian only roads in here. I'm going to have some shops and stuff in this area and make a little bit of a commercial hub in here. So I just really love these sort of natural looking areas in water parks. You see them all over the world, and I was actually contemplating making the entire theme based around a beach to begin with, but it meant that I'd have to follow that theme with everything rather than sort of have different themes. And considering that I wanted one of my slides to go sort of through and down temple ruins, yeah, the beach thing wasn't going to work. But man, I know some of the things you guys are going to come up with are going to be crazy. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this. If it isn't available on the Steam Workshop by the time this video is released, it certainly won't be far away. So now I'm basically going to go around and fill in all the little wee gaps, make it look a little bit more interesting. We're going to add stalls and smaller rides. There's going to be cafes and areas to go and sit down and have something to eat. I'm also going to add in some beautiful flowers and gardens where I can, especially around the big Disney castle. There's going to be a lot of trees put in as well, because I want lots of shade, especially along the paths and walking areas, so that no one gets sunburnt and it's a little bit more comfortable to walk around. I think little things like market stalls and little games for kids as well would probably be what you would see around a place like this. So all of those sorts of cool little things that you would expect to see, I'm going to add in, and I'm doing my best to keep them functional, although some of them aren't. Now, because I've built my water park in a random map with no city, I need to sort of get some citizens in. So what I've done is I've sneakily hid some block services within some of the buildings. So yeah, I guess these people actually live in a water park. Maybe in your city, you just add it in and the citizens are just already there, so you don't need to do this. I thought I'd show it anyway. Maybe I shouldn't have, but there it is. While I was looking around at different water parks for inspiration, I found this really cool looking slide that the end of it looked like a snake head, and it looked like the riders were sort of just coming out of the snake's mouth. And I thought, wow, that would actually go perfectly with one of the slides going through the ruins. So I scoured the workshop for a snake or a prop of some sort that I think could work. And I found this prop snake and turned it to procedural objects, blew it up to the appropriate size so that it was in scale with the slide, and just sort of turned it into the head and got rid of the body, and then carefully positioned it over the end of the slide. Now, it's definitely not perfect. The riders are clipping through it. I couldn't make it hollow, but it still looks really cool, I think. Next, I want to add lots and lots of colour, and oftentimes we see water parks with a big pool area with sort of a kid's fort in the middle of the pool. I couldn't really find anything that could work as that fort, but I found some other various props and slides that I'm going to put in the middle of these pools to try and achieve the same effect. I really want this park to be colourful and inviting and just look like fun personified. Everywhere you look is just something cool and something you want to go and do, and you just can't pick what to do first. Oh man, to be a kid again, eh? Not a care in the world. But anyway, I'll finish off placing a few more random props, and we're going to get into adding the riders going down the slides very soon. But before that, I want to do something really different. I want to make a wave pool. Not just a wave, this thing is going to be like a tsunami. It's not going to be moving, it's going to be stationary and just have water jetted up the surface of it, but I want to have a big slide that comes down and curves around so that it looks like you're riding across the wave on your tyre tube, and then you gently come off the end of it and into the pool. This gets really technical, so let's just start with what I'm doing first. I'm basically taking a shape from Z-Green Gaming that can be turned to procedural objects, and I can change the color and texture of it very easily. I've chosen this hollow tube shape, turned it to an appropriate blue, and I'm going to use a modules function within procedural objects to make it spin. This is going to look like the barrel part of the wave. Now you'll see at first I made this thing massive, like way too big. One of the goals was to make it look really intimidating, but I also want to make it look realistic, and the materials involved in making it like 60 or 70 feet high would just be ridiculous. You'd never use a wave that big anyway. So I decided to scale this down in the end so that the rider looked like they were sort of traveling across most of the surface of the wave. So now obviously we're going to add a pool in front of the wave, and this is what the rider's sort of going to travel through, up the wave and then back into. We'll also add a slide in there eventually, but we're getting to that. To make the barrel part of the wave look a little bit more realistic, I've also added in some steam markers from the vanilla game. These kind of make it look like there's a bit of water foam being generated here. This is also where I start experimenting with Kamanogi's waterfalls. These waterfall assets are brilliant because when they're turned to procedural objects, they stay animated, which is pretty cool. They can also give the impression of rushing water if you use them properly. And I imagine there is a huge amount of water being jetted up the face of this wave to create the illusion. So I decided to add them in. So now that all that's in place, we need to put the slide in. This is what the rider's going to come down initially to give enough speed to go up the face of the wave. It's going to be pretty straightforward, at least to begin with. It's just a straight drop, and then it will turn gradually into the face of the wave. I'll use no controller to twist the track a little bit so it lines up with the face of the wave. And then this is where it gets a little bit technical. I have to use one of Sully's invisible roads he's included in the pack, but it needs to be the road where the rider remains visible. I'm going to use this section of track on the face of the wave, and also where it returns into the pool. It took a long time to line this up properly, and it's definitely still not perfect, but I'm hoping this gives you guys ideas and a little bit of inspiration to try something different. So now we're finally going to go back and add all the train lines in that are going to make it look like these riders are coming down the slides. It's highly recommended to have Traffic Manager mod installed because you're going to need to change the speed. The default is 60 miles an hour, which is just way too fast for a water slide, but it means that the rider clips through the tubes on a lot of the sections of the track. I've backed mine off to a combination of 10, 20 and 30 miles an hour, which I think is much more appropriate, and the rider rides really nicely within the network tubes. Don't forget to lower the speed for flatter sections and ramp it up if it's really steep. I know you guys are hanging out for CS2, just like I am, but in the meantime, don't forget about CS1. I hope this has inspired you to get back on there and build an awesome water park because this was so much fun. I want to extend a massive thank you to Sully. Thank you for letting me get this early, and thank you for letting me put this video out. To my subscribers, thank you guys so much. I know my content's been a bit thin recently. I'm planning on getting back into it pretty hardcore, but you guys mean everything to me. Thank you so much. I'm still working on all my other projects, plus a few more secret ones that I can't talk about. Thank you again, legends, for watching. If you could hit a thumbs up, it does me wonders and it's much appreciated, and I hope to see you on the next episode of whatever it is I'm doing. See you later, guys.